Good morning, YouTube friends and family. And yes, Sally Brown just insists that she is a lap dog. And don't try to tell her any different. She'll bark at you. In today's vlog, I'm going to show you some of the film that I shot just a few days back. It's actually a tour of my garden as well as picking some tomatoes. So I have my coffee. Get yourself a cup of coffee and sit back and enjoy our vlog. All right, right here behind me is my garden. So let me show you what the tomatoes are doing. You can already see from the spots on this one, I've let that one hang there too long. But there's just so much going on. I'm constantly canning. And I see the same thing on this one. This one will have to go in the compost pile. That's a Dr. Wychie. But I have several of those hanging down here. And some of them have to come down today. I've not been doing a lot with these. These are the little orange tomatoes that I got the seed from Burpee. It was new this year. My brother loves a little orange tomato, so I raised these as plants for him. He took quite a few of them, but I ended up with about 3 plants, and they've just been beyond prolific. If you could take, because they're about the size of a Roma tomato, if you could get a Roma tomato that would bear like these things, you'd really have something. And these are my Celebrity Plus tomatoes. Oh dang, I got a hornworm here. I'll have to try to find him. He will destroy this plant. Insects are so much fun. But since he's eating on that one, he has to be close by. So I'll turn this camera off here when I get through, and I'll see if I can't find him. I am going to be picking all of these tomatoes and getting started with another batch of tomato sauce. I don't seem to ever can enough tomato sauce. Of course, I put it in so many things. My wife used to say that one of my favorite foods was just anything cooked in tomato sauce. And I guess she's probably right. And these are my little Braveheart cherry tomatoes that have been in that bucket for almost a year now. These are vines that I took, sprouts off of vines that I had in 2022 and sprouted. So technically these little vines have been bearing for a little over 2 years. Now, if you notice, there's some new growth coming on them, but there's hardly any growth. These buckets had been sitting out next to the tool shed in a group with just some canes, poles holding them up. So I went out there to check on them, and much to my surprise, there wasn't any leaves on any of these. They were clumped together. I did that so they weren't taking up a lot of space. And I had 4 gigantic hornworms on these. Not only had they eaten the leaves, they had run out of leaves and started eating on the little green tomatoes. And this is, in my estimation, one of the tastiest tomatoes. It is the sweetest little tomato that I'm raising. Most of the garden is through producing. If I'd have had something that was higher, I could certainly have had more sprouting broccoli. I would have thought that that was tough, but I have tasted a couple of those, the ones that didn't have bugs on them, and they're still rather sweet. And I've got to get these potatoes. I've been digging them as I need them, but that's all I've been doing. And these little brown Kentucky Wonder pole beans, they've just been doing fabulous. And I need to get out here and pick them. I'll have probably enough to do another 6 to 9 pints of green beans on these. One other thing that I have, and by the way, these pots that are full of weeds, those contain the species tulip bulbs that I moved from the other house. I didn't think that these little plants here would have time to make. These are a poblano pepper, but they're getting quite long. If they fill out, I'm going to have some poblano peppers. I love poblano peppers, and that's my country coming out. Of course, Lily Mae's here, making sure that all the little critters stay at bay. She really likes being in the garden, always has. And yes, I have to get out here and pick some of these tomatoes. I want you to look at these. These are pink Germans. Now, I've had them get big before, but never like this. And if you look in there, you can see that I definitely have to get out here and get some of these picked. And there's new tomatoes putting on, which I'm not sure they'll even have time to make. But that's my project for today, is to get these tomatoes picked. And if I walk down this way, I can show you that we're finally getting some blooms on the Blue Lake pole beans. They're not my favorite, but they're absolutely awesome to blister. And if you don't know what blistering a green bean is, that's simply taking the green beans, frying them in a little butter and olive oil, and I like them a little bit charred. And then you put salt, black pepper on them, and sprinkle them with shredded Parmesan cheese when they're done. They're such an awesome side dish. I'm also seeing some blooms here on the Appalachian white half runners. These are favorites of a friend of mine, and to be honest, they were Terry's favorite. So we've got those, and I am really pleased with the Creole tomatoes. They are just so abundant, and to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite flavors. Now, I do have a tomato down here, and none of it's gotten ripe yet, but that's called a Georgia Streak. It's supposed to be very similar to a Mr. Stripey in that it'll be yellow with red streaks. I'm looking forward to getting some of those. Hopefully that has time to get ripe. And these were planted extremely late, but boy, are they prolific. And this is the little Sweet 100s, and there's a ton of them. One of the things that I really liked during the winter is I buy little cocktail tomatoes. So I went out and went online and looked and found some seeds for them, and they do produce much like a cherry tomato would in little clumps, and they're not real large, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they taste like. Now to pick the Louisiana Creole. Not too deep. I let some of these go a little bit too far. They won't be wasted. That'll go into the compost. That's a nice box full of celebrity tomatoes. I picked some of them a little green, but there were rotten ones hanging there that had oozed on them, and I'll take them in and wash. They'll ripen on the counter. I'm not going to pick these little ripe Braveheart tomatoes because I like to have these things just here in the garden where I can come out and snack on them. So I typically leave them on the vine. Not a bad little haul from the garden. Once I get these put up, and that'll take a while, I'll be very, very happy.